am reacting to your Friday Night SmackDown Hot Take. Hot Takes is a weekly video series where I give you all a platform to be able to voice your thoughts, whether they're good thoughts, bad thoughts, or everything in between about the world of professional wrestling. So if you'd like to be featured in the next episode of Hot Takes, make sure that you follow me on X because I ask for your hot take after every episode of Raw, SmackDown, and every WWE Premium Live. As always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring that bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I am confident that you're going to fall in love with this YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And if you're looking for our review of Friday Night SmackDown, the 35-minute review is up and available on the Patreon with footage so you can see exactly what we're talking about. That's available on patreon.com/SantiZap. I'll put the link in the description as well as the link in the pinned comment for you. All right, folks, let's read your stupid shit. Triple H fumbled Game 7 horribly. LA Knight should not have been involved. It ruined the feud. I told you, I tried to tell you that inserting LA Knight into a feud that was between two men trying to figure out who the best of the two was just a bad idea. Did we get an end result that people are happy with? I would say so. Like, a lot of people are content with the triple threat that's going to happen at Crown Jewel. However, we absolutely could have gotten there in different ways that didn't absolutely clown on Andrade and Carmelo by having them both be absolutely squashed by LA Knight during the match. And we didn't need the match to be ruined by LA Knight either. Again, we had different ways to get to the same outcome. So there's still going to be apologists that tell you that, hey, look, this was the right idea. This was the only way to get to a triple threat. No, it wasn't. If we had put a little bit more creative thought into it, we absolutely could have gotten to the same end result without ruining one of the most pure, one of the most organically enjoyable professional wrestling feuds of the past 3 months. I knew it was a bad idea, and I feel like this is going to be like one of those things that eventually people will all come around to. Like when we said that Jimmy turning on Jay at SummerSlam was a bad idea, people were trying to justify it until eventually we all realized it was stupid. Just like how burning the Money in the Bank on night one was a bad idea. Eventually, most people came around to it. Eventually, everyone will come around to see that this was a bad idea to have LA Knight involved in here. I know that the end result is gonna be good. Look, I'm happy with the triple threat, but we did not need to ruin this beautiful 3-month feud between Andrade and Carmelo, in my opinion. Motor City Machine Guns winning the titles is such a great decision. Not only is it great, wait, why am I wearing my fucking headphones? I'm just realizing that. Let me Motor City Machine Guns winning the titles is such a great decision. Not only is it a great moment, but it shows other free agents around the world that the WWE is a huge opportunity for them. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because I've said this before about previous major hires from outside organizations. I said this about Jade Cargill, that they're rolling out the red carpet for Jade Cargill when she initially arrived to show free agents, look how we can treat you if you manage to make a name for yourself somewhere else. Look at how they've treated Ethan Page, for example. They didn't make him work his way up to the NXT title. This dude won the NXT title in record time. This is absolutely a great look for WWE if I'm a pending free agent and I see that these guys that have made a name for themselves somewhere else are being instantly treated like stars as opposed to being forced to work and earn their way back to the top. This is a great look for WWE and free agency. You're right. RIP Giovanni Vinci. I don't think he's going to get screen time for the entire rest of the year. It's tough right now. He might get some relevant screen time after Survivor Series because I presume that the Bloodline storyline will probably take a little bit of a rest after Bloodline Civil War games. But right now, a lot of that extra time that would be given to the Baron Corbins of the world, to the Apollos, to the Giovanni Vincis of the world, to the Pretty Deadlies of the world is now being taken up by the extra time that's being allotted to the Bloodline storyline. And don't get me wrong, I feel like it's actually the right choice because it's such a big plot line that involves so many people. And not only does it involve so many people, it involves multiple shows because now they're crossing over to, heck, they crossed over to NXT for a little bit, but they even are crossing over to Monday Night Raw. So this time allocated to the Bloodline is necessary. It's the biggest draw in wrestling right now. But the downside is that the people people like the Giovannis of the world are gonna have to just sort of wait until that extra time becomes available. And I think it's gonna be in that December period. So there is a chance, I think, that Giovanni Vinci could get an appearance before the end of the year. I don't think that the chances are zero. And personally, I feel like when you're telling a story like Giovanni Vinci's, which is a guy that just can't seem to win, he should be appearing more often and losing more often, so that the appeal of him being on this losing streak is top of mind with people. Because if he's just appearing every 5 weeks to lose, then that doesn't really tell an appealing story of a guy trying to break out of a losing slump, because it doesn't feel like a losing slump when you're not losing very often. And when I mean very often, I mean like in consecutive weeks, because he takes such a long break in between his losses. Jay forgiving Jimmy that easily is fine. They're twins, despite Jimmy costing Jay 1,000 title shots and compared to 1. The Roman arc must be harder with more substance. Yeah, so I have been seeing this criticism quite a bit online, that this was way too quick for Jimmy and Jay to reunite. And I feel like these people have a point. I don't think that they're entirely misguided, but I feel like they're hinging on the fact that, you know, hey, look at all the things that Jimmy did to Jay in terms of storyline. How would they ever get back together? Unfortunately, the simple answer is they're brothers, they're twins. Families fight, families feud, but at the end of the day, blood is thicker than water. If these were just friends before and they screwed each other this much, then I could see an argument like that this would be just too quick to reconcile. But, you know, it's family, man. I've been in arguments with family before that have to be instantly put aside when something happens, you know? So I get it from the familial structure of the Usos, but I also see your argument, like from just the outside looking in. If these are just two guys, it does seem entirely too quick to reconcile. That's why I agree with what Az is saying here, in that the Roman part should be a lot harder. You know, they are still family, but cousins are quite different than direct family members like brothers. I feel like Roman still needs to earn the respect and the forgiveness of Jey Uso. I said this in previous videos. I want Roman begging for forgiveness from Jey Uso. Remember when Roman was on his knees crying during his tribal court? I want to see that again, but for real this time. I'm not a fan of how Motor City Machine Guns won the tag titles. Jey Uso essentially won the match for them, and it made it feel like they didn't earn it on their own merit. I get that it advanced the Bloodline storyline, which I like, but I felt like a disservice to Motor City Machine Guns to win them in such an unclean way. Okay, I'm trying to see your point of view here, but I feel like your point of view is immediately just thrown over a cliff when I mentioned the fact that this was their second straight match. They were already in a disadvantage, so I could make the argument that the Usos coming out, all that did was level the playing field in a playing field that was already at a disadvantage for the Motor City Machine Guns. I'm also seeing this narrative, I'm not saying that you're saying this, but I'm seeing this narrative that like it was too quick. They shouldn't have won that quick from them debuting in the WWE. But you need to look under the layers, folks. They've been a tag team for over 20 years. This was not an overnight success. This was in 2 weeks to get the world title. This was 20 plus years to finally make it to the WWE, to finally win the world tag team titles. This isn't just a 2-week journey. It's an entire career-long journey that the Motor City Machine Guns went through. And I love the promo that they cut like right before the second match started with the Bloodline, saying that those titles right there, those are the titles that have been the most important to them and the titles that they've not been able to have a chance at winning yet. And Nick Aldis even did them an even bigger solid by putting them over, saying that like, I don't want you guys to not be ready for this opportunity that you've been working for 20 years to get. So to me, this felt like the Motor City Machine Guns were chasing the tag team gold in such a way that they were willing to put themselves at the disadvantage that they did. And again, I feel like everything that played out really just evened the odds to give the Motor City Machine Guns an actual fair playing field to win the tag title. Again, I don't want to discredit what you're saying, but I just don't feel like it's as black and white as you're putting it here. Jimmy is the glue keeping all of this together. Without him, the original Bloodline is nothing. Sure, I think you can make a pretty solid argument that Jimmy is the one that's brought them back together. He's the glue that's brought them back, but I can also say that he's the solvent that caused them all to disperse in the first place. He was the one that super kicked Sami Zayn first when Sami Zayn turned on Roman Reigns. Jimmy was the first one to turn on Roman Reigns at Night of Champions 2023. He he was the one to turn on Jimmy first. So to me, he is the one that kind of caused the initial downfall of the original Bloodline in the first place. So I don't want to give him credit because he's just such a good guy that's put it back together. I feel like this is part of his penance. I feel like, again, I might be just reading too deep into this. Maybe it's not that deep of a story, but to me, this is his punishment. This is what he has to do in order to bring back what he himself destroyed. Oh my God. The last 4 hours, folks. Oh, beautiful. Oh my goodness. That, folks, was a sneak peek of this week's Wrestling is Cool Match Club, available exclusively over on patreon.com/SantiZap. This week, we're looking at the champion versus champion match between Brock Lesnar and Daniel Bryan at Survivor Series 2018. The absolutely gruesomely bloody Eddie Guerrero versus JBL from Judgment Day 2004. I'm warning you on that one. It's really bloody. Motor City Machine Guns versus Beer Money in TNA, match 5 of their best of 5 series. A certified classic between Io and Kyrie in Stardom back in 2016. It's fantastic. And the legendary street fight between Mick Foley and Triple H at Royal Rumble 2000. We're also still doing our Royal Rumble watch-alongs leading up until Royal Rumble 2025, and now we're going to be starting the Undertaker streak watch-along leading into WrestleMania 41. You're also going to get the Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews, the Wrestling is Cool podcast 3 days earlier, and more. So consider checking it out. Unfortunately, this is content that we just cannot show on YouTube. It's just impossible to do. That's patreon.com/SantiZap. The link is in the description for you, as well as the link in the pinned comment. Go check it out. If you're already on the Patreon, thank you so much for supporting my journey as a content creator. It does mean a lot, but let's get back to the video. Who would have thought that the original Bloodline would help Motor City win tag team titles? Wrestling is so peak. Dude, it's so funny that you put it that way because it actually feels like some made up lore storyline that you might find on some shitty Reddit post, all right? Because 5 weeks ago, if you told me that Roman Reigns and the original Bloodline would all coalesce back together to help TNA legendary tag team Motor City Machine Guns walk into WWE, beat the evil version of the Bloodline to win the tag team titles, I would tell you that that is the weirdest fantasy romance that I've ever fucking read in my life. But it happened, and I feel like it was delivered expertly. Candice is a 5-star match machine. With the Motor City Machine Guns putting on classics with DIY and the Tongans, we should not forget the classic between Candice and Naomi. I like that you pointed this out. Candice LeRae is fantastic. I feel like I said this in the last video where I was telling people, if you haven't experienced Candice LeRae like from Black and Gold era NXT or when she was in the Indies, we haven't seen Candice LeRae actually like for real on the main roster, and I feel like they're slowly letting her loose because she did have a great match with Naomi. Actually, when I was live streaming my reactions and my watch along, I said that that might have been Naomi's best match since coming back to the WWE, and I feel like a large part of that is because of how clean and crisp Candice LeRae is. Telling you, give Candice a chance. Keep a close lookout as to how she has her matches, her body language, the way she delivers promos. She's really good, and I feel like we're about to see the breakout of Candice LeRae here. You were right, Santi. Game 7 did not need LA Knight. Look, I am wrong, like a lot, like 90% of the time, but there are moments, and I will die on this hill, where I know I'm right. I know I'm freaking right. And I feel like this is one of those. And eventually, I feel like history will play out in such a way where people will realize that I was right the entire time about this. This was a W ending to SmackDown. The Usos reuniting and embracing the hug. I'm glad to be a wrestling fan. That was such a great moment, and I'm always so grateful that I get to experience these cool moments with a community. If you don't know, if you just watch the YouTube videos, I do watch-alongs of every episode of Raw and SmackDown on Twitch and here on YouTube. And I've said this before, where it sucked when I didn't have an outlet of wrestling fans to immediately talk about wrestling with the second that the cool thing happens, right? I remember being in my dorm room when The Undertaker lost his streak and having absolutely no one to talk to. And I'm sure that you watching this video have probably had that exact same feeling that I had all the way back in 2014. But now internet wrestling fans are so interconnected with one another, whether you're coming to one of my live streams or maybe you're just part of the conversation on Twitter, you get to share your thoughts and your feelings and talk about these cool moments that have happened, like the Usos reuniting, which is a thing that's been over a year in the making, and you can have that instant gratification of having that conversation in the moment with people. I know that what I'm saying here doesn't really relate too much on like the specific moment, because we're going to talk a little bit more about this moment later on in this video, but I just kind of wanted to talk about the interconnectivity of wrestling fans in the age of 2024. It's a pretty cool experience, honestly. The last few minutes of SmackDown reminded me of WrestleMania 40 Night 2 main event. What an amazing episode. Let's effing go. Dude, I didn't even like connect those dots. That was Bloodline rules. That was Bloodline rules. Motor City Machine Guns versus the Tongans was Bloodline rules. Like in terms of like how the last two Bloodline rules match have played out, this was the exact same formula. Like identical to how WrestleMania 40 and SummerSlam played out. Obviously with not as big a shock surprises and nowhere near as big as stakes, because it's the tag titles instead of the WWE Championship. But I think it's just kind of clear that Triple H is good at booking this style of a hectic main event. I really think that he's mastered it, and I feel like he's going to continue to get better and better, and maybe we'll get more Bloodline Rule style finishes, maybe mid-card titles as well down the line. I'm so hyped for the Fatal 4-Way for the women's tag titles at Crown Jewel. The buildup has been very short, but I loved all of it. I also didn't see a Fatal 4-Way coming, but it's a very good surprise. I was like really pleasantly surprised that they decided to add this to Crown Jewel. Also, Crown Jewel has 6 matches. That's kind of crazy in its own right, considering we haven't been able to get over 5 matches in the last several PLEs. But I do believe, like from an in-ring perspective and even from a narrative point of view, that this storyline has earned a spot in the PLE. Like this has been a front and center story arc across every single show. It's unique in that way, in that it's been a focal point of Raw, SmackDown, and even NXT at this point. It's also kind of cool that the Metaphor girls, these girls from NXT, are going to get a PLE nod in Saudi Arabia for Women's Tag Team Championship Gold. I feel like that's fantastic. I thought that this was going to go the way that it was going to set up for a big Women's Tag Team War Games match, and it might still go that way, because when I look at the landscape of like women's storytelling right now, I don't feel that either the Women's Raw like main event or the SmackDown women's main event, I don't think that there's a good enough story arc worthy of Survivor Series War Games. But I weirdly think that the women's tag titles could be the women's War Games match. But I'm excited for this match. I love that there's so many women that are going to be getting this opportunity on the PLE. And I've been saying this, what now, for like 8 months? It's because Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair are the tag champions that it's giving this the juice to be able to get PLE nods. I feel like even those that despise Bianca and Jade need to, at the very least, recognize the star power behind them, and that is the reason the women's tag titles are getting pushed to PLEs. I feel like Jade and Bianca are doing a great job at elevating the tag team division. If they're not going to use Baron Corbin, they might as well just send them to Raw to reunite with the Wolf Dogs. I don't know that I want to see the reunification of the Wolf Dogs yet, because we have Braun Breaker kind of going on a pretty awesome singles run right now. So I'm going to change your tweet, and my thoughts are that if they're not going to use Baron Corbin, they might as well just send them to NXT. That's where he should be. That's where he belongs right now. Not because he's a developmental guy, but because he's too good to not use. And on top of that, NXT just signed a lucrative deal, and it's got the most eyeballs that it's ever had. I feel like somebody like Baron Corbin, somebody that's improved as much and is as good as Baron Corbin, would help elevate NXT in that new network to that new audience by adding a recognizable main roster name on there. And I feel like you can actually find a good place and a good story arc for Baron Corbin over there, whether it's in the mid-card, lower mid-card, main event. Like Baron Corbin can be such a chameleon of divisions on NXT. He can jump all over the place and deliver great storylines. He already did it in his first run in NXT, second technically run on NXT, where he was mid-card. He even had a main event feud dude, and he even went into the tag team division. Like, the dude can play every role in NXT right now, and I feel like that's where he should be if they're not going to use him on SmackDown. Jimmy and Jay being back just feels right. I wonder if they're going to go back to a tag team or keep them as single superstars. That's a great question. I feel like the reunification of the Usos as a tag team is going to be a short-term thing. Like, remember when the Shield reunited for a little bit? I feel like that's going to be this. I don't think that it's a good idea to take somebody like Jey Uso that's really carved out a super great, really profitable and lucrative singles run and then bring him back into the tag team fold for the foreseeable future. I feel like this is going to be a, hey, we're coming together to take out this greater evil, maybe together up until WrestleMania, but I feel like the long-term goal should be to have these guys as single stars as long as they possibly can. SmackDown, being pre-recorded, leaked some of the moments on Twitter, and it should always be a live show. Yes, it should be a live show. And if you're one of those dipshits that's been leaking on Twitter, your mom's a hoe and I hate you. This was so weird though, right? Like, this was like 40 minutes pre-taped. For those that don't know, SmackDown for the live audience started a bit earlier than what we were actually seeing on TV. I think it's just because they didn't want to keep the crowd there for too late and lose energy for what would be the second episode of SmackDown that they record, because they recorded 2 episodes. But instead of starting at 8 p.m. like everyone watching at home, and I say 8 p.m. Eastern time, they started at like 7:10, 7:20. So they were quite a bit ahead of us. So a lot of leaks for the episode that we were watching was being leaked, and now leaks for the next week's episode are available. So tread lightly. It is a dangerous world of spoilers out there, folks. Nick Aldis said that the winner of Game 7 would face LA Knight for the US title, and we have already seen LA Knight versus both of them in a singles match. So LA Knight interfering in Game 7 was the right call, because that was the only way that we would have gotten a triple threat match. I get it. Your name is Yeah Revolution. You're an LA Knight page. So I get you defending your boy, but this is fruitless. It doesn't make any sense. To say that this was the only way to get a triple threat match is just a lack of creativity. How about we just let these guys fight so damn hard? A feud that has been built on these guys hating each other and wanting to kill each other and trying to determine who the best one is. What if they fight so hard that they can't fight anymore, and all of a sudden it's a no contest? What if they kill each other so much on the outside it ends up in a double count out? Again, not the greatest finish, but at the very least it's a finish on their own accord. It's a finish that is directed and led by Andrade and Carmelo Hayes. What the feud should have been all about the entire time. Maybe it's such a good match that it ends like Triple H versus Shawn Michaels back in 2004, where they both accidentally pin each other after a 25-minute classic, leaving no contest. There were ways to make this about Andrade and Carmelo Hayes. What all of the matches have been about, what this entire feud has been about. You should have had the ending of Game 7 be about those two. Instead, it was about LA Knight. And what did LA Knight gain out of this? Honestly, I don't think very much. I actually think that kind of hurt his character. It made him look incredibly petty. It made him look like he was almost afraid to deal with the winner. Obviously, I'm stretching there. I get it. But I don't think that this did anything to elevate LA Knight. And if anything, I just feel like this made Andrade and Carmelo look worse, because they just got 1v2'd by LA Knight. I just think it was a bad idea. And I get it. You're an LA Knight page, but trust me, with time, you're going to see it this way too. I will also say this. I haven't seen this much distaste for LA Knight like ever on social media. And people will tell you the internet wrestling community is fickle. Look at them. You know, they can't wait for long-term storytelling. I feel like that's fair too. However, we can't discount what they're saying. We also just shouldn't try and protect bad Triple H booking decisions. I get it. He's been amazing. He hits it out of the park 9 out of 10 times. I just think that this is one of the 10 that he doesn't. Solo is slowly becoming one of the most underrated superstars on the roster right now. His work keeps getting better week after week, and he honestly has a very bright future ahead of him. Solo's figured it out. Solo has figured it out. It took him months, but he has finally, folks, arrived. Solo Sikoa is here to stay, and I'm excited and entertained every time that I see Solo Sikoa now, because he has tapped into this like lower version of his character. And by lower, I don't mean worse, but I mean like more cynical, more willing to point out the ridiculousness in things, and obviously just a lot more charismatic and a lot more willing to show emotion, when before he was purely trying to get over by how brooding and badass he was. The unfortunate thing is that Solo, and to a degree the Tongans, were just more brooding and badass than he was. So this is the best way for Solo Sikoa to stick out. This isn't a CM Punk reference, take it as you will, but he needed to be a cult of personality. In order to be able, and historically, this is just the truth, in order to be able to lead dangerous people like this, you need to be a larger than life charismatic individual, a cult of personality. And that is what Solo Sikoa, before our very eyes over the last several weeks, has become. Now that the Tongans lost the titles, Judgment Day just needs to lose theirs and we can get more tag title defenses. Yes, I agree. Let's have Judgment Day lose those tag titles, but do not put the Tongans alongside them. The Tongans were defending those titles. The Tongans were great tag team champions. The Bloodline overall did such a great service to the tag team division. Judgment Day just hogged those titles. They were a main event faction that was having individual singles feuds while they were tag team champions. And because of that, the tag team titles in the tag team division suffered and never got featured once in over 120 days. That's been the number of defenses. The Bloodline, on the other hand, they've been in the main event, but at the same time also carrying and balancing feuds in the tag team division of SmackDown and even appearing in NXT. They have been proper tag team champions. And because they're part of the main event, all the while they're being part of the tag team division, the main event aura elevates the tag team division to be on par with the main event. That's literally what happened with the Motor City Machine Guns. The tag team division got raised up to a place where the Motor City Machine Guns were sharing freaking screen time with the Bloodline, with Roman Reigns, with Jimmy, Jay, the biggest names in professional wrestling right now. That's huge for the Motor City Machine Guns, of course, but huge for the tag team division. So huge shout out to the Tongans and the Bloodline and how the WWE did this main event heel faction carrying tag team gold. It's what they should have done with the Judgment Day. I've noticed every time Randy goes to help Cody, he always picks up the title first. I'm glad you're noticing that. I've been noticing that too. I'm sure that that is all entirely on purpose, because I do think that the destination at some point is Cody versus Randy, and it could be WrestleMania 41. He was there, Santi, and I bet he felt oozy. Gotta love Mark, man. Time to play the game. Yeah. Look, I'm just glad that we're getting more Mark everywhere. Cody and Gunther cut some of the best promos I've ever seen. This was needed to get us reeled in even more for their match at Crown Jewel. Get us reeled in even more. I wasn't reeled in. Now I am. This reeled me in. It didn't reel me in more. This was a really, really good promo between both Cody Rhodes and especially Gunther. Gunther killed it. I feel like he was better than Cody Rhodes in that promo, in my opinion. There's just something about Cody Rhodes sometimes where he just sort of feels like he's being a bit of a politician with his promos. And that's not always the case. Like sometimes like there's like genuine passion that I can get behind and I believe. But just somehow, and I think it's because of how much he's trying to tout and make this Saudi championship feel so important and unnecessarily bringing in his daughter and talking about how like this will be the first time that a Rhodes wins a title internationally. Like you're not selling us on this. We're never going to be sold on this. And I think because they're putting this on Cody Rhodes' plate, making it the job of Cody Rhodes to be the PR machine for the Saudi title, it's making his promos feel manufactured, flat, and like I said, a politician. Gunther, on the other hand, it just sort of sounds like he's having his regular professional wrestling promos that we become accustomed to. So this feels like the Gunther that we know and love. Meanwhile, this feels like a corporate PR machine, Cody Rhodes, that's really trying to spin something into something that we want to see, but we already all collectively agreed that we don't. I'm sure the match is going to be amazing, but I would say that if I was grading who won that battle in terms of promo, I'm going to give that to Gunther. Thoughts on the new LA Knight custom US belt? Wait, what the fuck? Ooh, what's custom about? Is it the straps? Just like a more glittery strap? Okay, that's kind of cool, I guess. They didn't really change it very much. I could see Tommaso turning on Gargano after taking his super kick on the face, costing them the #1 contendership for the tag titles. Oh yeah, dude, it's gonna happen. Before all the stuff of WrestleMania 40, Tommaso Ciampa Ciampa versus Johnny Gargano was the crown jewel of no pun intended, crown jewel. The crown jewel of Triple H storytelling. That's his baby. That to me is, before the Bloodline stuff and WrestleMania 40, this was the best tale that Triple H had told up until the point of his booking career. You don't think that he's going to revisit his greatest hits? WWE revisits greatest hits all the time. We're absolutely going to get Tommaso Ciampa versus Johnny Gargano. It's going to happen, and it's going to be a slow burn. It ain't going to start next week, folks. So just strap in, because this could be something that takes a whole year. Love that Randy called out Triple H. Thought that segment seriously rocked. Unhinged Kevin Owens versus the Viper is going to absolutely cook. I'm just glad that we got this out of the way, who the higher power is that was preventing this match from happening, so that the crazy people with the tinfoil hats that thought it was The Rock can finally just rest, all right? It was Triple H. It was always Triple H, all right? I love that Triple H put over Kevin Owens heavily, and that worked with me, man. Like, seeing that WWE has been keeping Kevin Owens off of TV, and then having Triple H himself say that he's scared for what Kevin Owens could do to Randy Orton. Who would ever say that to Randy Orton? It's Randy Orton. To me, what Triple H was saying really landed with me, and I feel like we're going to get a vicious, dangerous, cornered Fox dangerous levels of Kevin Owens. I'm excited for the match. I'm excited for the feud. I feel like maybe with how much they built up Kevin Owens for how dangerous he is and how much they've been keeping him off of WWE, maybe they should have dipped into the bag of making this an unsanctioned match. Like, all right, Randy, I'll give you your match, but it's not going to be something that's sanctioned by WWE. You deal with it at Crown Jewel. Ugh. That's my terrible impression of Triple H. They should have done this as an unsanctioned match. Either way, I'm excited the match is happening. I'm excited that it's a 6-match card for Crown Jewel. All matches that I'm excited to see. All right, folks, thanks so much for submitting in your hot takes. I'm done. Get out of here.